everyone, and welcome to Tal Talks. This is our Sugar Plum Fairy December edition, and we are joined with someone who's really fun and awesome, and I'm super happy to talk to her today. This is probably the loopiest performer that I've ever met. This is Laloopna Hoops. Say hi!
Hey, way to make me blush with such a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, you're waiting for me to stop talking so you can actually talk. Okay. So why don't you explain a little bit about what you do at Renaissance fairs?
Okay, so I am a hula hoop performer and coach. I'm actually a certified coach. So most of my acts are heavily based on that, but a lot of what I do varies from event to event. So I'm never sure if I'm going to pepper in maybe some stilt walking, a little levitation wand. I'm learning on working fans and poi and various silks. So my performances tend to vary drastically depending on the event or what character I decided to be that day.
Some of those are really different. Yeah, like hooping and poi, they're similar in some ways, but that must take a lot of work to go through different routines.
It does take a lot of practice and translating. For example, double hoops translates really well to poi.
Oh.
I tend to be a single hoop manipulator, so my left hand still needs a lot of practice.
Huh. That's interesting. So what actually got you into hula hooping? What made you decide that was the thing for you that you just enjoyed doing so much?
I first saw hula hooping at a music festival in 2012. And honestly, that festival was a miserable experience for me personally. It was not a good time, but what came out of it was I saw other hula hoopers and I saw what they were doing and I was like, that's amazing. I was just entranced by it and I decided I want to do that. So I bought my very first hula hoop and I had no idea about any of it. So I bought a hoop that was way too small for me. Most people don't realize when you're trying to learn to hula hoop, the bigger the hoop, the easier it is. But for some reason, we naturally go for the smallest, shiniest, prettiest hoop we could find. So mine was way too small. And that weekend, I taught myself a couple of really simple, basic tricks just by playing around. Didn't really touch it for several years. Saw a few videos online. Actually, one of my biggest inspirations was Rachel Lust, who is famous for breaks and paddles, which is a particular type of hoop trick. She went viral, I want to say in maybe 2013 or so with a video to thrift shop. And I saw that and I was showing all my friends and I'm like, I want to do this. I have to do this. And I picked up a hoop again a little bit and dabbled, but never really got anywhere with it. Then in 2015, I went through a huge life shift and I went on a road trip across the country and I met my half sister, who was also a hula hooper. So she taught me a few tricks that night, let me play with her LED hoop, which was so cool. And I'm like, oh my God, it lights up. She taught me a few things. And I decided, well, if she can do it, I can do it. And I started practicing like crazy. I had moved back to New Hampshire. I hadn't found a job yet. And it was the middle of summer. So I spent anywhere between an hour and 6 hours a day.
Oh my gosh.
With my hoops. Just over and over and over. I was covered in bruises. I was constantly sore. I think I lost about 20 pounds in the first 2 months. Just constant movement and practice.
I think that's what people don't tend to realize about a lot of the performers that I've talked to is the amount of practice and work that goes into their act. People always say, oh man, I wish I could do that. And it's like, well, you just have to have the time and put a lot of work into it.
Exactly. People get to see the polished product.
Yeah.
We spend so much time practicing. And then especially in today's world where so much of it is either posted to social media or it's an edited video being released, you get to see the 1,000,000,001 times we drop the hoop, or we wailed ourselves in the face, or the hoop ran away and we go flailing after it. Everyone messes up.
Yeah, well, I've actually seen you live a bunch of times, and I've never seen any mistakes.
That just tells you I've been practicing enough to catch the mistakes as they're happening. It's actually one of my favorite sayings. If you haven't dropped your hoop in a while, it's time to learn something new. Another saying I heard in regards to hooping was, you don't learn how to become perfect. You learn 1,000,000,001 ways to catch and roll with the mistakes.
Yeah, that's actually that's funny because when we talked to a magician a while back, he was talking about how when the trick goes bad, basically he just learns all these new ways to make it look like it's part of the act.
Exactly. And part of the way I present my act is I'm very focused on showing everyone that they can learn to do what I do. So if I mess up in my act, it's kind of perfect for that. It shows everyone I'm only human. I mess up too. Just because I look like I'm perfect up here doesn't mean you can't learn to do it too.
So how many hoops is the most hoops that you've ever hooped? I don't know if that's the right.
Yeah, that works. In regards to hooping or other various flow arts, we use the term flow.
Okay.
So flow is, to define it simply, is kind of like a state of meditation. I tend to describe it as don't think, just move.
I get
It's
that.
that point where you don't have to think about what you're doing next. You just go. So to flow with hoops is a good way to put it. Typically, I am not a multi-hooper. It's not what speaks to me, although I do find it fascinating. There are such things as slinky hoops where you have maybe 50 hoops all attached.
Oh my gosh.
I know I've tried it before because as a teacher, I love to play with my students and have some time in class to just goof around and see what we can discover. So I think I've tried maybe about 10 hoops, but it didn't go for very long. It was maybe a few, and then a few dropped, and then kind of little by little all hit the floor. But yeah, for me, I'm very focused on single hoop manipulation and working on various tricks.
Okay. Good to know. What is your most challenging trick? I know I don't think people realize how many different tricks there are that are involved in a lot of your routines, but what would you say is the hardest part of performing?
I would say the hardest tricks I do would be duck-ins. So I have a duck-in variation that I do two different ways. One is I take the hoop and I throw it up under my arm and it comes around, and as it arcs down and comes down in front of me, I actually have a hoop here. So as it starts to come down, what I do is I duck my head inside of the hoop. It makes a rotation around my neck, and then I pop it back off for a catch. So that was actually how I first learned to do a basic duck-in like that. The second more complicated one is from a chest roll. So for a chest roll, arms go out wide and the hoop, I don't know if I can do this sitting. Well, give it a try. Let's see if I break things. Nope, can't do it against the wall. But the hoop comes along across from one hand to the other. For a duck-in, as that hoop hits your shoulder, you duck your head into the hoop for that rotation around the neck, bring it back up, and it continues to roll down. So I think those are my most complicated. But what I find really interesting is just because it's technically complicated doesn't mean an audience will respond.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's too quick or it's too technical.
I see that a lot with a lot of different acts. Yeah, jugglers, like when their hardest acts are generally the ones that people don't realize are the most, they're doing like, if they're like, oh, this is more pins than I've ever juggled, and everyone's like, okay.
Yep. One that I do a lot and everyone seems to love is this one called an isolation. This definitely takes some practice because you need to learn to stabilize the hoop. It's not the hoop moving, it's the hand moving around the hoop and creating the illusion that everyone goes nuts over this one, but it's actually one of the simplest hoop tricks you can learn and with variations.
That's really cool. I love how, like, when you said duck in, the first thing I was thinking of was like a duck. I was just like, what?
There are a lot of really funny names for different tricks. There's actually another trick that everyone loves. It's where it's between the legs and you lift your knees, and it causes the hoop to rotate up and down like this.
Yeah, I've seen you do that one. That one's cool.
It's actually called a wedgie. And I always get a kick out of telling everyone the name of that because I don't know where these names come from. They're just kind of generic in the hoop community. And it's just really funny to turn around and go, oh, yeah, that trick's called a wedgie.
Oh, man. Wow. Who names these things? Speaking of stilts and other things like that, how many different performance types do you do? I know you do hooping, but maybe you could talk about all the other things that you have.
Yep. So hooping is my main focus. It's my first love that brought me into this level of performance. Stilt walking came a few years later. A friend of mine was offering lessons, and I figured, why not? Let's learn something new. And after 4 lessons, I'm like, I need me a pair of those.
You must have really good balance to be able to do all these things.
I always joke, I can barely walk in high heels, and yet I'm fine on stilts. It is a lot of balance, but what's actually interesting to me anyway is that it changes the way you walk. When people walk normally, they walk heel, ball, toe. If you ever walking around and curious, look down at your feet, pay attention to it.
And now I'm doing it like while I'm sitting here.
Right? Heel connects first, you roll through to the ball of your foot, and your toe is the last thing to hit the ground.
Yeah.
Dancers do the opposite. Dancers will walk and turn out, and they'll go toe, ball, heel.
Oh, yeah, I've seen dancers, like ballerinas, do that kind of thing.
Stilt walkers, if they're using peg stilts, meaning they're standing on something about that big around, your weight is actually right in the center of your foot, pretty much the arch of your foot. And you pick your knees up and come straight up and down.
That sounds really uncomfortable to me. But I have high arches and nothing ever touches them. So I'm just like, ugh.
Arch support is a definite must for stilt walking shoes. Mine are actually physically bolted to my stilts. So there are bolts through the bottom so they won't move, plus foot straps to make sure it's extra secure so I'm not sliding around on them.
That's smart.
It's the safest way.
So you have stilt walking, you have hooping, what other kind of stuff?
I am currently dabbling in learning poi, which most people would recognize as like 2 balls on strings, and fans. Fans are either LED or fire fans. They also make silk fans. So I'm dabbling in all 3 of those, but I always have a million things to do and I never seem to find enough time to practice everything. And I have prop ADD. I want to play this one. Ooh, that's pretty. I need one. What's this? I'm all over the board. I dabble in a lot of little things.
I really get that. I think that's every musician. We end up doing that with musical instruments. We're like, oh, I want to play that. Oh, I want to play that. And then you have a house full of musical instruments and you mostly just gravitate towards the one that that you play the most.
I have a house full of props, but I always come back to hula hoop.
Yeah, I have a house full of instruments and I always play bass. I do have too many basses, though. Don't let my husband hear me say that. I have 3 stand-ups, and then I have a ton of electric ones.
Nice. I have a lot of hoops because I teach. I have 50 hula hoops.
Whoa.
That's for teaching.
So you bring all the hoops to the class to teach?
Yes.
Oh, That's awesome.
Part of the reason I do that is because when you're learning hoop dance, you need a different type of hoop than what you could typically find at the store.
And people might not know their size, like you said.
Exactly. So I like being able to offer a wide variety of hoops, ranging from little ones for little kids to try and play to ones that are over 50 inches in diameter to help people learn how to waist hoop, because the bigger the hoop, the easier it is.
That's really cool.
And that's just my teaching hoops. I think my personal collection is close to about 20 different.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I was recently moving and my mom looked at me and went, you have too many hoops. I'm like, no, I need more.
What do you keep them all in?
My dad helped me create this great hoop hanger setup. It's actually the garden hose things.
Yeah.
The metal things to hold garden hoses. We mounted wooden boards to the walls so we wouldn't cause wall
Too
damage.
much damage, yeah.
I learned that one the hard way. Industrial Velcro and wall paint don't go well together. So wooden board with the hose hangers on them, and you hang the hoops from that. When storing hula hoops, you either want to hang them so they don't warp or to lay them flat because they are plastic.
Yeah.
Depending on how you store them, they will warp over time. And if your hoop goes wonky, that's going to mess with your ability.
Especially if you have so many, you don't want them all getting ruined. That's expensive.
Yeah. Especially because good hoops that you can learn on for hoop dance, they're not cheap.
Yeah.
A basic untaped hoop ranging at about 30 diameters is usually gonna run you at least $20 to $30 depending on the hoop maker. But
and then like the professional, like big ones, like how much are those generally?
The really big ones that I use for teaching, I actually made myself.
Oh.
So you can actually learn to make your own hula hoops, but it's a lot harder than you might think.
Well, they have to be balanced, right?
It's not so much balance, it's your connector. So a lot of hula hoops these days for hoop dancers, and I'll actually sneak in so you can see this on this. This is actually a push button rivet here. So I can disconnect this hula hoop and break it down for either storage or travel.
Oh.
So
that's really cool.
Yeah. But the most difficult part is getting a nice clean cut on the tubing so your ends will fit together.
Yeah.
If it doesn't fit together smoothly, it will leave a gap. And that gap can pinch you when you're practicing. And I've had that happen from trying to make my own hoops, and it's not comfortable. But for really big hoops, if you want to start with a beginner hoop to learn to waist hoop, you can actually go to stores like Lowe's or Home Depot and pick up irrigation tubing. And you can cut that, use that straight connector, and you'll have to hit that tubing with a hairdryer to really warm it up and make it pliable to get that to close.
So it's like PVC pipes you're talking about?
Not PVC. It's the irrigation tubing. It's HDPE, I believe.
Huh.
There are so many different materials used to make hula hoops. There's polypropylene. There's HDPE, which is high density polyethylene. They now make polycarbonates. Every material reacts differently and helps you learn different tricks or flow differently.
Because it was funny when you were talking about it, made me think of making boffer weapons for LARPs. How, I mean, those are PVC, but you end up, if you want to curve your weapon that you're creating, then you heat it up and you can get like a good curve on it.
Makes sense.
It's kind of funny.
Tubing, if you're fighting to get that connector closed, hitting it with the heat helps. But creating those hoops, I'm sitting there going, whew, I appreciate hoop makers. This is hard.
Huh. That's really neat. Well, we learned a lot about hoops.
Yeah. A lot of learning to hula hoop is learning your materials, learning what's going to make waist tubing easier, what's going to make breaks and paddles, even where you live. Polypro hoops are notorious for cracking in cold temperatures. You can't keep them in a cold car in the winter. Or if you want to take an awesome snowy video outside, you don't want polypro because if it's too cold, they'll snap and shatter on you.
And they probably warp in the heat, a lot of them too, huh?
The HDPE hoops, I find, get kind of gummy and tacky in heat. So I tend to shy away from those for summer gigs because I need something that's springy. It's going to move nicely and it's not going to get warped in that heat.
Because you really got to know a lot about the different materials to make sure that you have the right.
There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
Okay, so you do hooping, you're doing poi, stilt walking,
Yep.
and I know there's more stuff. What about fire?
I am working on fire. Part of the reason I don't offer it currently a lot is because New Hampshire is actually very, very strict about fire performance laws.
Huh.
So it is actually illegal to spin fire in New Hampshire without licensure.
Yeah, a lot of it's not illegal in Massachusetts, but most of the places that we rent, you have to have insurance.
Insurance is always a must for fire performance. Always, always, always get fire safety training if you're going to start playing with fire. Learn from other performers who are trained and know what they're doing. It's not something you just decide, oh, hey, I'm going to light this on fire and spin it around my body. No, no, please don't do that. Please, please, please. So I've been very fortunate. I've been able to study with a lot of different friends who are in the flow community, have years of experience. So I'm still in training. I'm learning a lot. I've been training with fire hoop. I've been training fire fans, palm torches, where it's a little wick that's attached to your hand. I recently ordered a hip belt, which I'm really excited about to get to learn. So fire eating as well. I've been dabbling with torches and fleshing. So I really love the fire aspect. I just know I need to go through the right checkpoints first before I can fully offer it.
Now, does that make you nervous working with fire, or are you just really excited about it?
No. I've always been a little pyro. I've always loved fire.
So is there anything that people should know before they go watch your show? Words of advice.
Biggest thing is keep an open mind and be willing to be silly and play. A lot of my shows, because I firmly believe absolutely anyone can learn to do what I do, I will pull audience members and I will teach you to do what I do. I can stand up here all day and tell you, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. But until I turn around and hand you a hoop and teach you something, you're not going to believe it. So being able to pull someone at random, maybe a volunteer who really wants to learn, or just go, you get up here. Like, it's a chance to demonstrate that I'm not just talking the talk, I'm walking the walk. Anyone can learn to do this.
I need to get to one of your hoop classes one of these days, because they seem like so much fun.
Well, we could set up a Zoom lesson.
That would be awesome. Maybe when the weather's better, because I don't think I could do it inside.
Yeah, you definitely have to have some space for indoor hooping. I have beams in my house, which is all sorts of fun when I start to go for above the head stuff, because I will leave scrapes and scratches on the beams. So I've actually learned how to modify a lot of my over the head trick to a point where I bend my elbow or whatever to kind of lower it. But practicing hooping definitely requires a decent sized space where you're not afraid you're going to break anything.
Or knock a cat out.
People can see it. Animals can see it. When you find something you love, don't let it go. Chase it. Anyone can do what I do. If it's a hoop, if it's stilting, if you want to learn poi, if you want to learn sewing, coloring, juggling, whatever you want to learn to do, decide you're going to do it.
Good advice. Very good advice. Well, we have gotten to our Marf Tongue Twister Challenge.
Oh,
are you able to get to the chat?
Let me see. I have never done Zoom before, so I see a chat.
And that is the tongue twister that I put in there. If you could do your best to say it as quickly as possible.
All right, give me 1 minute to read all the way through. I can't even say minute. This is not boding well. Okay. Pesky pixies pilfered plum pies from a pair of peculiar plum pickers playing panpipes.
Yay! Can you do it faster?
All right, round 2. Pesky pixies pilfered plum pies from a pair of peculiar plum pickers playing panpipes. Reminds me of a tongue twister I learned years ago for theater warm-ups. Maybe if I practiced it, I'd get better.
No, that was good. It's funny that like different performers, depending on what they do, are better at tongue twisters than others. Most of the ones that are really good are the ones that do like a lot of talking in their show, like magicians or sideshow people. That's part of the act, is just the
Definitely.
banter.
I know sometimes I get so excited that my brain gets ahead of my tongue and I end up speaking like Yoda. It's just sorry, first day with a new tongue.
That's a good one. I like that. Oh,
Yeah. I learned that at a day camp when I was a kid, and I've kept it in my back pocket because it always comes in handy.
I feel like that would be a really good one for like a Halloween type show.
Definitely. That again goes back to what we were talking about, being able to improv, laugh at yourself, and roll through it and move through.
Okay, so you were able to make it through our tongue twister challenge. I know that you will have a show playing on our pages this weekend, but what else do you have going on that you want to tell us about? Your websites, your classes, or anything you're offering?
Right now, things have been a little quiet, especially with the way things have been going this year. I think safety is very important, and a lot of what I do, because I provide the hoops, sanitizing the hoops can get a little iffy. So right now I'm mainly offering, if people are interested in online classes, I can definitely offer that. I am offering performances that do social distancing. I'm totally comfortable wearing a mask, staying away from everyone. Stilt walking is great for that because I'm taller than everyone.
That's perfect.
But mostly I've been taking the time to really work on various aspects of what I do, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, working on practicing with some of the props I really want to get good at and eventually be able to offer, working on a lot of sewing and costumes, various makeup concepts. I was a theater kid, so the behind the scenes stuff is just as much fun to me as what happens in front of an audience.
And you will hopefully be joining us at the Mass Run Fair in August. Hopefully everything will be running this year and everyone will be able to come and see you in person. That would be the best.
I would love it. Selena the Sorceress missed seeing everyone this year.
Yeah, we missed seeing you too. I miss seeing everybody. But it's going to make this next coming summer so much better.
Exactly.
We're all waiting and we're all really excited about it.
And it gives us creative types a chance to really work on stuff and put things together. So when we come back, we're going to come back strong.
And you have a website, Facebook?
Yes, I have Facebook and a website and an Instagram. So you can find me at www.laloopnahoops.com. That's LALOOPNA Hoops. You can also find me on Facebook as Laloopna Hoops, and same on Instagram.
Great. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us and talking to us, and I can't wait to see your show this weekend.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute blast.
Bye.
And I'm freaking out. Like, no, you do that. I go down, I crack my head open, no more leave.